I mean, when you look, I had done some research, and to actually see what they managed to achieve in the 60s and 70s with computers as they were then, I mean, I find quite incredible from a sort of technical perspective. Were there any of those interviews that you did through the cash program that sort of particularly stuck with you, or any particular insights that you did manage to glean from talking to the various computer artists?
Well, yes, and the overriding message from that time really is how difficult it was, and that it was a
Mm,
niche. So, if you think of art as already really a niche, I mean, we're enmeshed in the art world, and we think it's everything. But actually, for the vast majority of the population globally, art is a niche. So here we're talking about a niche of a niche. These are a very small number of people who did this at this time because it was difficult and it demanded long hours and dedication. It wasn't something that was necessarily taught as a standard subject in schools. So that meant that, you had to kind of go out on a limb already. You had to be an outlier by definition. And it actually attracted a certain type of mindset, a type of person who was interested in logic, who was interested in mathematics, who was interested in perhaps underlying laws of the universe, discovering what these are, and how can we set up a system to make art according to a set of rules or a set of instructions. And that's an algorithm, of course. So that is writing your own algorithms, writing your own code, trying to decipher, like Harold Cohen did. How can I distill everything that I know about being a painter into a system, into a set of rules that will paint for me, so to speak, get the computer to produce work of its autonomously. So this attracts a certain type of artist. Of course, there's other types of artists who are interested in different things. So that really the art world is a vast and huge umbrella that encompasses a lot of different types of approaches. But yes, I think that it was a small world back then, and most people, they had heard of each other or they knew of each other. So unlike now, where it's enormous and there's simply no way we can keep up. I mean, particularly with social media and so many artists who are bypassing the gallery system these days. They go the straight to the purchasers, to the buyers. They can go straight to their audience without having to go through dealers, without having to go through layers of museums and curators and whatnot. So it's just impossible to keep up with nowadays. It's so huge. But back in the 70s, it was very possible to know of, if not know personally, every single person involved in the field. And they would get together and they'd get together at conferences, they'd get together at meetings, they'd get together at exhibitions. When somebody traveled from the States or from Japan, they would come to the UK, they would make contact with the Computer Arts Society, with Alan Sutcliffe particularly, and they'd all gather around and have a meeting and discuss things. This is obviously way before the internet was a
mm.
usable interface, and the way you learnt things was through conferences. It was through proceedings, books, articles, and by talking to people.
I mean, is that part of what you hoped to that's the story that you wanted to tell, with a computer in the art room in 2008, to make sure those messages weren't lost and that history was preserved?
Absolutely, and I do understand that what I'm doing is very close to oral history and social history. But that doesn't bother me in any way. I don't see why I can't, talk
Mm,
about Tony Pritchett and his experiences, or talk about Alan Kitching, who told me the lovely story, which didn't make it into the book because I didn't feel that it was academic enough. But Alan Kitching also worked at Didcot at the Atlas Lab, and of course he was an animator, and he had to work at night because this is when the machines were not required for their normal
yeah.
usage, scientific simulations that they were being put to. So he would obviously go in there in the evening, and he would spend all night letting his program run. And he would get very tired. And one day well, I think regularly, he would lie down and sleep on one of the desks, one of the tables in the big computer room. These are big mainframe computers. They were in their own specialist facility that was air conditioned. And, so anyway, he was lying there asleep, presumably on top of his desk. And the night watchman came by and saw this fellow stretched out and thought someone had died in there and was just horrified looking through the window. And then pretty soon Alan Kitching sits up because of course, whatever time has come and he has to go over and do something to the program. And the night watchman pretty much had a heart attack because here's this rising from the dead Lazarus. So that was lots of funny little stories like that. But when you have to go in at night, imagine going in at night and using the equipment because they said, okay, you're an artist, but you're not important. You can just go and come at night when it's not needed. And of course, this
Mm,
stuff was really expensive. It was high tech, cutting edge, expensive. You couldn't just have any old buddy going in there and twiddling away with it. You had to have people who
absolutely.
were in charge. And many
Mm,
artists, they actually had to build up a reputation, had to build up a relationship with these technical people who wore white lab coats, who were probably quite dour, probably quite, mathematically minded
mm,
scientists. And here's a crazy artist in the 1970s who had some wacky ideas. You had to build up a relationship. Many times these people collaborated. So we see a lot of art being made both by people who are from an art school trained background, as well as people who are from a scientifically trained background, and people who are neither, who go in and use equipment and collaborate with others. So it does encompass a wide range of practitioners who maybe don't fit the traditional definition of what an artist is or what an artist is
mm,
supposed to be. And again, this is another clue to me as to why it had been overlooked for so long by the art world, because the art world is not willing to accept people who do not fit a certain mold. So if you do not come out of a traditional art school background or something that fits what they consider to be a true artist, then you don't really count. So this has again been problematic and challenging for the mainstream art world to understand that people who are actually technicians or maybe have science degrees, they can also make art too because they were fascinated by what these machines could do. They were not
mm,
designed to make art, but they could be used in a creative way. And of course, that is something that all artists have done since probably the first person put their hand on a cave wall and blew around it and left their handprint. The dawn of time, how can we take technology? How can we push it? How can we manipulate it? What can we do with this thing that we can use creatively? And
mm.
that is something that runs through the whole of humanity. And it's nothing particularly new with computing technology. It's just that we happen to be in this era living through it.